What's up, everyone, and welcome to this week's Cybersecurity Weekly, where we review the security events that happened last week. As always, I've broken the stories down in the timeline, and there is a list of the stories with time markers in the description below, so you can click on any of those time markers to jump around to any story that you want. If you find my work valuable, of course, I ask you to hit the like button and share this episode with anyone you know who can benefit from this information. And lastly, if you have not already, please also consider subscribing to my channel.
Oh, drat these computers. They're so naughty and so complex. I could pinch them.
We start off today with phishing. In March 2022, Mondiant researchers discovered threat actors using a shared Phishing-as-a-Service platform called Caffeine. The experts noticed that the toolkit has an intuitive interface and supports multiple features that allow customers to easily arrange phishing campaigns. The service includes self-service mechanisms to craft customized phishing kits, manage intermediary redirect pages and final stage lure pages, dynamically generate URLs for hosted malicious payloads, and track campaign email activity. The toolkit provides templates for a broad range of targets, including Chinese and Russian organizations, which is quite uncommon in the cybercrime ecosystem. Caffeine is advertised on multiple cybercrime underground forums. Its subscription models are more expensive compared with other FAS platforms. A monthly base subscription costs approximately $250, while the cost of other FAS ranges between $50 and $80. A subscription for 3 months, a professional subscription, costs $250, while a 6-month license, which is enterprise, costs $850. One of the phishing campaigns analyzed by Mondiant, which relied on the Caffeine toolkit, aimed at stealing Microsoft 365 credentials. Landing pages were hosted on legitimate WordPress sites that were previously compromised. Landing pages observed by the researchers were currently limited to Microsoft 365 credential harvesting lures, but experts believe that the author of the toolkits would support additional phishing pages in the future as per customer demands. The report published by Mondiant provides details about the main elements of the Caffeine phishing platform, which are core Caffeine account, licensing, campaign infrastructure, and configuration. It is also important to keep in mind that defensive measures against FAS attacks can be a game of cat and mouse. As quickly as threat actor infrastructure gets taken down, new infrastructure can spur up, concludes the report that includes YARA rules for this threat and IOCs. Below are the recommendations provided by Mondiant for organizations to reduce the impact of phishing attacks and compromised domains on a strategic level, periodically evaluating any public-facing web infrastructure and files against known good versions of the content, utilizing behavioral and analytics for weblogs analysis to include initial URL structure, form submission, and redirections, occasionally reassessing security policies regarding passwords and credential resets, implementing two-factor authentication on, at a minimum, any user account used to access an enterprise environment from an external source. We now move on to patches. Aruba addressed multiple critical severity vulnerabilities in the EdgeConnect Enterprise Orchestrator that can be exploited by remote attackers to compromise the vulnerable host. Aruba EdgeConnect Orchestrator is a centralized SD-WAN management solution that allows enterprises to control their WAN. The vulnerabilities addressed by Aruba are CVE 2022-37913 and CVE 2022-37914 with a CVSS score of 3.1 or 9.8, or version 3.1 of 9.8. Authentication bypass vulnerabilities that resides in the web-based management interface of EdgeConnect Orchestrator. Threat actors can trigger the issue to bypass authentication. Vulnerabilities in the web-based management interface of Aruba EdgeConnect Enterprise Orchestrator could allow an unauthenticated remote attacker to bypass authentication. Successful exploitation of these vulnerabilities could allow an attacker to gain administrative privileges, leading to complete compromise of the Aruba EdgeConnect Enterprise Orchestrator host, reads the advisory published by the vendor. The company also addressed an unauthenticated remote code execution issue in Aruba EdgeConnect Enterprise Orchestrator web-based management interface. The flaw, tracked as CVE 2022-37915, can be exploited to execute arbitrary commands on the underlying host, leading to complete system compromise. The company addressed the issue with the release of the following versions: Aruba EdgeConnect Enterprise Orchestration 9.2.0.40405 and above, 9.1.3.40197 and above, 9.0.7.40110 and above, 8.10.23.40015 and above. To minimize the likelihood of exploitation for the above vulnerabilities, the vendor recommends to restrict the CLI and web-based management interfaces to a dedicated Layer 2 segment VLAN and or controlled by firewall policies at Layer 3 and above. Microsoft Patch Tuesday security updates for October 2022 addressed 85 new vulnerabilities in multiple products, including Microsoft Windows and Windows Components, Azure, Azure Arc, Azure DevOps, Microsoft Edge, Chromium-based, Office and Office Components, Visual Studio Code, Active Directory Domain Services and Active Directory Certificate Services, NuGet Client, Hyper-V, and the Windows Resilient File System. 15 of the 85 bugs are rated critical, 69 are rated important, and 1 is rated moderate in severity. It is interesting to note that the security patches don't address the Exchange server issues, despite 2 MS Exchange flaws being actively exploited in the wild. These bugs were purchased by the ZDI at the beginning of September, or reported by ZDI at the beginning of September, and reported to Microsoft at the time. They're going to buy the bug? I think that sentence is wrong. Anyway. With no updates available to fully address these bugs, the best administrators can do is ensure the September 2021 cumulative update is installed. This adds the Exchange Emergency Mitigation Service. This automatically installs available mitigations and sends diagnostic data to Microsoft, reported ZDI. Their mitigation advice has changed multiple times, so you'll need to make sure you check it often for updates. One of the most interesting issues addressed by Microsoft this month is a privilege escalation issue tracked to CVE 2022-41033 in Windows COM plus Event System Service. This flaw is being actively exploited in attacks in the wild, likely chained with other issues to achieve code execution over a system. An attacker who successfully exploited this vulnerability could gain system privileges, reads the advisory published by Microsoft. Microsoft Patch Tuesday also addressed a critical Office remote code execution vulnerability tracked to CVE 2022-38048. The IT giant also addressed a Windows client server runtime system, elevation of privilege vulnerability tracked to CVE 2022-37987 / CVE 2022-37989, and an Azure Arc enabled Kubernetes cluster connect elevation of privileges vulnerability tracked to CVE 2022-37968 with a CVSS score of 10.0. We now move on to attacks, vulnerabilities, and updates. Proof of concept exploit code is now available for a critical authentication bypass vulnerability affecting Fortinet, FortiOS, FortiOS or Forti and FortiProxy, and FortiSwitch Manager appliances. The security flaw CVE 2022-40684 allows attackers to bypass the authentication process on the administrative interface of FortiGate firewalls, FortiProxy web proxies, and FortiSwitch Manager on-premise management instances. Horizon3.ai security researchers released a proof of concept exploit and a technical root cause analysis for this vulnerability today, or last week, following an announcement that a CVE 2022-40684 POC will be made available last week. The POC exploit is designed to abuse the authentication bypass flaw to set an SSH key for the user specified when launching the Python script from the command line. An attacker can use this vulnerability to do just about anything they want to the vulnerable system. This includes changing network configurations, adding new users, and initiating packet captures, explained Horizon3.ai exploit developer James Horseman. This exploit seems to follow a trend among recently discovered enterprise software vulnerabilities where HTTP headers are improperly validated or overly trusted. Additionally, according to previous Horizon3.ai analysis, attackers may also further compromise systems by modifying the admin user's SSH keys to enable the attacker to log into the compromised system, adding new local users, updating networking configurations to reroute traffic, downloading the system configuration, initiating packet captures to capture other sensitive system information. While a publicly available proof-of-concept exploit would be a strong enough incentive to immediately patch all vulnerable FortiOS, FortiProxy, and FortiSwitch Manager appliances, the bug is also being abused in ongoing attacks. CISA added CVE 2022-40684 on Tuesday to its list of security bugs known to be exploited in the wild, requiring all federal, civilian, executive branch agencies to patch their Fortinet devices until November 1st to block ongoing attacks. If these devices cannot be updated in a timely manner, internet-facing HTTPS administration should be immediately disabled until the upgrade can be performed. Fortinet warned customers last week in private communications or notifications. admins who cannot immediately apply patches or disable vulnerable appliances to ensure that their servers aren't compromised can also use mitigation measures shared by Fortinet in the security advisory. The workarounds require disabling the HTTP/HTTPS administrative interface or limiting the IP addresses that can reach the admin interface using a local policy. The Budworm Cyber Espionage Group, aka APT27, aka Browns Union, aka Emissary Panda, aka Lucky Mouse, aka TG3390, not TGIF, and Red Phoenix is behind a series of attacks conducted over the past 6 months against a number of high-profile targets, including the government of a Middle Eastern country, a multinational electronics manufacturer, and a U.S. state legislature. This is the first time that Symantec researchers have observed the Budworm group targeting a U.S.-based organization. The group also targeted a hospital in Southeast Asia. The China-linked APT27 group has been active since 2010. It targeted organizations worldwide, including U.S. defense contractors, financial service firms, and a national data center in Central Asia. The group was involved in cyber espionage campaigns aimed at new generation weapons and in surveillance activities on dissidents and other civilian groups. The cyber espionage group leveraged both readily available tools and custom malware in their operations. Many tools are available for years or have been available for years, but in recent attacks, their code was updated. In January, German intelligence warned of Chinese nation-state actors targeting commercial organizations with hyper-bro remote access Trojans. The attacks aimed at stealing sensitive data from the victims and attempting to launch supply chain attacks targeting their customers. In the recent attacks, the app group leveraged the Log4j vulnerabilities, CVE 2022-44228 and CVE 2021-45105, to install web shells on target servers. The threat actors used virtual private servers hosted on Vultr and Telstra as command and control servers. The attackers continue to use the HyperBro backdoor, which is often loaded using the dynamic link library side-loading technique. In recent attacks, Budworm has used the endpoint privilege management software CyberArk Viewfinity to perform side loading. The binary, which has the default name of vf_host.exe, is usually renamed by the attackers in order to masquerade as a more innocuous file. Masqueraded names include security health services service.exe, secu.exe, vfhost.exe, vxhost.exe, vx.exe, and v.exe, reads the report published by the experts. In some cases, the HyperBro backdoor was loaded with its own HyperBro loader file names like peloader.exe or 12.exe. It is designed to load malicious DLLs and encrypt payloads. In recent attacks, the app also used the PlugX or Core Plug Trojan along with the following tools: Cobalt Strike, an off-the-shelf tool that can be used to load shellcode onto victim machines. If you haven't heard about Cobalt Strike yet, then you should look it up. It has legitimate uses as a penetration testing tool, but is frequently exploited by malicious actors. And then there's Lasagna, another one you should know, a publicly available credential dumping tool. IOX, a publicly available proxy and port forwarding tool. Fast Reverse Proxy, or FRP, a reverse proxy tool. FScan, a publicly available intranet scanning tool. In more recent years, the group's activity appears to have been largely focused on Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. The researchers said a resumption of attacks against US-based targets could signal a change in focus for the group. VMware warns customers that it has yet to address a high-severity privilege escalation vulnerability tracked to CVE 2021-22048 in the vCenter server. The flaw was disclosed in November 2021. It resides in the vCenter server's IWA, or Integrated Windows Authentication Mechanism. The vulnerability can be exploited by an attacker with non-administrative access to vulnerable vCenter server deployments to elevate privileges to a higher privileged group. The vCenter server contains a a privilege escalation vulnerability in the IWA authentication mechanism, reads the advisory published by the company. A malicious actor with non-administrative access to vCenter server may exploit this issue to elevate privileges to a higher privileged group. In July 2022, VMware addressed CVE 2021-22048 vulnerability for the latest available release at the time, vCenter Server 7.0 Update 3F. Unfortunately, security patches released by the company did not fix the issue and caused the crash of the secure token service, triggering an exception in post-install hook. VMware has determined that vCenter 7.0 U3F updates previously mentioned in the response matrix do not remediate CVE 2021-22048 and may introduce a functional issue for customers using IWA, reported the advisory published by the virtualization giant. At the time, the company provided a workaround for this vulnerability, suggesting switching to AD over LDAPs authentication or Identity Provider Federation for ADFS vSphere 7.0 only for integrated Windows authentication. The Cloudflare DDoS Threat Report 2022 third quarter states that multi-terabyte massive DDoS attacks have become increasingly frequent. In the third quarter, the company mitigated multiple attacks that exceeded 1 terabyte per second. The largest attack was a 2.5 terabit per second DDoS attack against the Minecraft server. It was launched by a Mirai botnet. The largest attack was a 2.5 terabits per second DDoS attack launched by a Mirai botnet variant aimed at the Minecraft server, Winecraft. This is the largest attack we've ever seen from the bitrate perspective, states the report published by the company. It was a multi-vector attack consisting of UDP and TCP floods. However, Winecraft, a massively multiplayer online role-playing game Minecraft server where hundreds and thousands of users can play on the same server, didn't even notice the attacks since Cloudflare filtered it out for them. Yay! The report also states that the application layer DDoS attacks increased by 111% compared to last year. The researchers also noticed that L3 and 4 DDoS attacks powered by Mirai-based botnets increased by 405%. In the third quarter, 15% of Cloudflare customers that responded to our survey reported being targeted by HTTP DDoS attacks accompanied by a threat or a ransom note. This represents a 15% increase quarter over quarter and 67% increase year over year of reported ransom DDoS attacks. The country that was most targeted by HTTP DDoS attacks was Taiwan. The experts reported an increase of 200% compared to the last quarter, followed by Japan with 105%. The countries most targeted by HTTP distributed denial of service attacks were the United States, followed by China, and Cyprus. Network layer attacks targeted mainly hit Network layer attacks targeted mainly hit targets? Huh? I guess what they're trying to say is network layer attacks mainly hit targets in Singapore, the US, and China. The experts also warn of the abuse of the BitTorrent file sharing protocol that rose by over 1,200% quarter over quarter. Over the years, it's become easier, cheaper, and more accessible for attackers and attackers for hire to launch DDoS attacks. But as easy as it has become for the attackers, we want to make sure that it is even easier and free for defenders of organizations of all sizes to protect themselves against DDoS attacks of all types, concludes the report by Cloudflare. Researchers from Cisco Talos discovered a new, previously undocumented attack framework that included a command and control server dubbed Alchimist. The framework is likely being used in attacks aimed at Windows, macOS, and Linux systems. The Alchemist has a web interface in simplified Chinese. Talos researchers found it on a server that had a file listing active on the root directory, along with a set of post-exploitation tools. The Alchemist command and control server can generate a configured payload, establish remote sessions, deploy payload to the remote machines, capture screenshots, perform remote shellcode execution, and run arbitrary commands. The security forum also found additional tools such as a macOS dropper embedded with an exploit for the PwnKit CVE 2021-4034 flaw and a macOS bind shell backdoor. In August, Talos observed a Chinese threat actor using a new offensive framework called Manjusaka, which can be translated to cow flour from the simplified Chinese writing. That is similar to Sliver and Cobalt Strike tools. The attack framework is advertised as an imitation of the Cobalt Strike framework. The experts reported that the implants for the new malware family are written in the Rust language for Windows and Linux. Experts highlight that both Manjusaka and Alchemist support similar functionalities despite that they differ in the implementation of the web interfaces. The Alchemist command and control panel stands out for its ability to generate PowerShell and wget code snippets for Windows and Linux. Threat actors could use these commands to build their infection chain for distributing the insect rat. An attacker can embed these commands in a malicious script that could be embedded in a maldoc attachment and deliver it to the victims by various means. The analysis of the insect rat revealed a 64-bit implant written in Golang compiled for both Windows and Linux environments. The malicious code supports a variety of rat capabilities that can be requested by the Alchemist command and control server. POLONIUM APT focused only on Israeli targets. It launched attacks against more than a dozen organizations in various industries, including engineering, information technology, law, communications, branding and marketing, media, insurance, and social services. Microsoft MSTIC researchers believe that the attackers were coordinated with other actors affiliated with Iran's Ministry of Intelligence and Security, or MOIS. Based on victim overlap in TTPs, the circumstance is confirmed by revelations that emerged in the last couple of years that the Iranian government is using cyber mercenaries for its operations. MSTIC has observed Polonium active on or targeting multiple organizations that were previously compromised by Iran-linked Muddy Water Apt, aka Mercury. According to Microsoft, Polonium is an apt group based in Lebanon that coordinates its activities with other actors affiliated with the Iranian Ministry of Intelligence and Security. Now, ESET researchers reported that the apt group has used at least 7 different custom backdoors since September 2021 against Israeli targets. Most of the attacks responded in September 2022, and the custom tools developed by the group allow them to spy on the victims. The tools allow the attackers to take screenshots, lock keystrokes, spy via the webcam, open reverse shells, exfiltrate files, exfiltrate files, and more. ESET researchers recently analyzed previously undocumented custom backdoors and cyber espionage tools deployed in Israel by the Polonium app group. ESET named the 5 previously undocumented backdoors with the suffix -creep, reads the report published by ESET. According to ESET telemetry, Polonium has targeted more than a dozen organizations in Israel since at least September 2021, with the group's most recent actions being observed in September 2022. In September, ESET observed the threat actors using a previously undocumented custom backdoor dubbed PapaCreep. The C++ backdoor can receive and execute commands from a remote server via TCP sockets. The experts pointed out that the PapaCreep is the first backdoor used by Polonium app that was not written in C# or PowerShell. The experts noticed that the group exclusively used IP addresses in the code of the analyzed samples. ESET reports that most of the servers are dedicated virtual private servers, likely purchased rather than compromised, hosted on host GW. Despite the researchers having analyzed multiple artifacts used in the attacks, the initial compromise vector is yet to be discovered. Polonium is a very active threat actor with a vast arsenal of malware tools and is constantly modifying them and developing new ones. A common characteristic of several of the group's tools is the abuse of cloud services such as Dropbox, Mega, and OneDrive for command and control communications, it concludes the report. Intelligence and public reports about Polonium are very scarce and limited, likely because the group's attacks are highly targeted and the initial compromise vector is not known. Kaspersky researchers discovered an unofficial WhatsApp Android application named Yo WhatsApp that steals access keys for users' accounts. Mod apps are advertised as unofficial versions of legitimate apps that have features that the official one does not support. Yo WhatsApp is a fully working messenger which supports additional features such as customizing the interface or blocking access to individual chats. The tainted WhatsApp version asks for the same permissions as the original messenger app, such as access to SMS. This mod delivers the Triada Trojan, which can drop other malicious payloads, issue paid subscriptions, and even steal WhatsApp accounts. According to Kaspersky, more than 3,600 users have been targeted in the last 2 months. The Yo WhatsApp Android app was advertised in the official SnapTube app. The experts also found the malicious app built into the popular VidMate mobile app, which is designed to save and watch videos from YouTube. Unlike SnapTube, the malicious build was uploaded to the internal store, which is part of VidMate. Kaspersky researchers reported that Yo WhatsApp version 2.22.11.75 steals WhatsApp keys, allowing threat actors to take over users' accounts. In 2021, Kaspersky spotted another modified version of WhatsApp for Android, which was offering extra features, but that was used to deliver Triada Trojan. The experts also discovered the the advertisement for software development kit that included the downloader for the malicious payload. The FM WhatsApp was designed to gather unique device identifiers, device IDs, subscriber IDs, MAC addresses, and the name of the app package where they were deployed. To stay safe, researchers recommend only installing applications from official stores and reliable resources, remembering to check which permissions you give installed applications. Some of them can be very dangerous, or at least check it in your settings, at least for iOS. It's pretty easy to find on a regular basis. Installing a reliable mobile antivirus on your smartphone, such as Kaspersky Internet Security for Android, it'll detect and prevent most threats. The pro-Russia hacktivist group KillNet is claiming responsibility for massive distributed denial-of-service attacks against the websites of several major airports in the United States. The DDoS attacks have taken the websites offline. Users were not able to access it during the offensive. According to Bleepy Computer, the list of impacted websites includes the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, the Los Angeles International Airport, the Chicago O'Hare International Airport, the Orlando International Airport, the Denver International Airport, the Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport, and the sites of airports in Kentucky, Mississippi, and Hawaii. The KillNet group published a list of targets on its Telegram channel, calling for action against them to its followers. The attacks did not impact the operations at the airports. KillNet has previously targeted many other countries that condemned the Russian invasion of the Ukraine, including Italy, Romania, Estonia, Lithuania, and Norway. CommonSpirit, one of the largest hospital chains in the U.S., last week suffered a ransomware cyber attack that caused severe inconvenience to the facilities and its patients. The alleged security breach led to delayed surgeries, holdups in patient care, and forced the chain to reschedule doctor appointments across the country. CommonSpirit Health has identified an IT security issue that is impacting some of its facilities. We have taken certain systems offline. We are continuing to investigate this issue and follow existing protocols for system outages, reads the statement published by the company. CommonSpirit Health confirmed it had experienced an IT security issue that forced it to take part of its infrastructure offline. We're grateful to our staff and physicians who are doing everything possible to minimize the impact to our patients, continues the statement. We take our responsibility to our patients very seriously and apologize for any inconvenience. Lloyd's in London is investigating a cyber attack after detecting unusual network activity this week. In response to the alleged intrusion, it has reset the IT infrastructure and shut down any external connection. Lloyd's has detected unusual activity on its network, and we're investigating the issue, a spokesperson told the media. As a precautionary measure, we are resetting the Lloyd's network and systems. All external connectivity has been turned off, including Lloyd's delegated authority platforms. The incident comes after the entire insurance industry was alerted of cyber attacks as a result of the ongoing conflict between Russia and the Ukraine. Companies in the insurance market condemned Russia's invasion of Ukraine and supported sanctions against Moscow. Both UK and the European Union banned on insuring ships carrying Russian oil. In August, Lloyd's London told its insurance syndicates that it will not cover losses caused by cyber attacks conducted by nation-state actors and resulting from malicious activities related to or the ongoing conflict. Researchers from Sophos warn that BlackByte ransomware operators are using a bring-your-own vulnerable driver attack to bypass security products. In BYOVD attacks, threat actors abuse vulnerabilities in legitimate signed drivers on which security products rely to achieve successful kernel mode exploitation. Other ransomware gangs in the past abused the BYOVD technique to disable security solutions. For example, Robinhood and Avos Locker operators exploited vulnerabilities CVE 2018-19320 in the GDRV.sys and ASWAR.pot.sys drivers. While investigating the most recent variant of the ransomware, which is written in Go, the experts discovered that the threat actors are exploiting a vulnerability in a legitimate Windows driver to bypass security solutions. We found a sophisticated technique to bypass security products by abusing a known vulnerability in the legitimate vulnerable driver RTCore64.sys, reads the post published by Sophos. The evasion technique supports disabling a whopping list of over 1,000 drivers on which security products rely to provide protection. The RTCore64.sys and RTCore32.sys drivers are widely used by MicroStar's MSI Afterburner 4.6.2.15658 utility, which gives extended control over graphics cards on the system. The CVE 2019-16098 exploitation allows an authenticated user to read and write to arbitrary memory, potentially leading to privilege escalation, code execution under high privileges, or information disclosure. Sophos researchers pointed out that kernel notify routines are used by loaded drivers to be notified by the kernel of system activity. Drivers related to security products often rely on these routines to collect information about system activity. Sophos experts also identified the kernel routines to deactivate ETW, or Event Tracing for Windows, Microsoft Windows Threat Intelligence Provider, which is used to log the use of API calls associated with malicious activities such as NT-read virtual memory to inject into another process's memory. Disabling ETW, every security feature that relies on them, is blind. Once the anti-analysis checks finish, BlackByte attempts to retrieve a file handle of the master boot record, as seen as I showed in a figure. If failed, the ransomware tries to at least bypass user access control and restart itself with higher privileges via CM LUA or CMSTP LUA UAC bypass, continues the report. Experts provide the following recommendations to defend against such type of attacks. Threat actors usually exploit well-known vulnerabilities in the used driver. For this reason, by keeping track of the latest security issues, it's possible blocklist drivers known or to block drivers known to be exploitable. Always keep track of the drivers installed on your systems and keep them up to date. Security researchers have discovered an NPM timing attack that reveals the names of private packages so threat actors can release malicious clones publicly to trick developers into using them instead. The attack relies on a small time difference in the return of the 404 not found error when searching for a private compared to a non-existent package in a repository. While the response time difference is only a few hundred milliseconds, it is enough to determine whether a private package exists to perform package impersonation attacks. Organizations create private packages for internal projects and certain software products to minimize the risk of their development teams falling for typo squatting attacks and to keep their code and functions secret. Keeping private packages private is crucial for organizations using them. Otherwise, attackers can create clones or typo squatted packages that hackers could trick employees of organizations into downloading and using in software projects. If the developers and internal software testers don't discover the compromise, the products could reach end users, achieving a supply chain compromise. In a report by Aqua Security's threat research team, attackers are increasingly focusing on supply chain attacks, fueling a rise of 300% in associated activities in 2021. NPM includes a registry API that allows users to download existing packages, check for the existence of packages, and receive information about all packages under a specific scope. When using the NPM registry to download a package that does not exist or is set to private, the website will return a 404 HTTP error code indicating that the package could not be found. Aqua Security discovered the NPM timing attack by using this API to check for the existence of private packages they created on NPM and compared the response time of the 404 HTTP errors against the API checks for non-existent packages. Recently, the CyberNews research team stumbled upon an unprotected database with over 90 million drone monitoring logs generated by DJI Devices, the largest market player in the world that sells both drones and devices to surveil them. Used by the military, businesses, and consumers, drones are fundamentally changing aviation. Therefore, the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration envisions integrating drones into the national airspace system by identifying all unmanned aircraft systems. The FAA introduced remote ID, analogous to the license plates for drones, to identify owners of all drones in case they're flying in an unsafe manner or where they are not allowed to fly. Remote ID will provide information about the drones in flight, the identity, location, and altitude of the drone, and its control station or takeoff location. But it seems that Chinese-owned DJI already controlled the lion's share of the drone market worldwide and got there first. In 2017, it introduced the AeroScope device to provide an in-flight drone identification system. In fact, the company boasted about protecting the prestigious Cannes Film Fest 2022 from unsolicited intrusions from aerial cameras. AeroScope was used by police officers to watch for drones in the area's no-fly zone. From temporary events like festivals, government events, and major sporting events to fixed sites like airports, prisons, and nuclear power plants, AeroScope is a simple, robust technical solution to provide immediate information about DJI drones in the area, from their flight paths to their pilot locations to their serial numbers. On October 5th, 2022, the U.S. Defense Department added DJI and a dozen other companies to a list of Chinese entities believed to be connected to the Chinese military. Pentagon paved the way to further restrictions on their businesses, arguing that access to advanced technologies is crucial for modernizing the People's Liberation Army. DJI was also in the spotlight after Ukraine's Vice Prime Minister Mikhailo Fedorov accused the company of helping the Kremlin to kill civilians by allowing Russia to freely use DJI devices, including AeroScope, on Ukrainian soil. The CyberNews research team discovered an open database with over 90 million entries of drone monitoring logs created by 66 different DJI AeroScope devices, with the majority of them, 53 of them, being located in the U.S. Some are located in Qatar, 6 of them, and a few in Germany, France, and Turkey. Logs included the drone's position, model and serial number, the position of the drone's pilot, the home location, usually the point of takeoff. No personally identifiable information was present in the dataset. South Korean cybersecurity firm OnLab reported that LockBit ransomware affiliates are distributing their malware via compromised Microsoft Exchange servers. In July 2022, 2 servers operated by a customer of the security firm were infected with LockBit 3.0 ransomware. Threat actors initially deployed web shell on a compromised Exchange server. Then it took just 7 days to escalate privilege to Active Directory admin and stole roughly 1.3 terabytes of data before encrypting systems hosted in the network. According to the researchers, the attackers allegedly exploited a zero-day vulnerability in Microsoft Exchange Server. Looking at the Microsoft Exchange Server vulnerability history, the remote code execution vulnerability was disclosed on December 16, 2021, CVE 2022-21969. The privilege escalation vulnerability was disclosed in February 2022, and the most recent vulnerability was on June 27th. Information disclosure vulnerability? That is, among the vulnerabilities disclosed after May, there were no reports of vulnerabilities related to remote commands or file creation, reads the report published by OnLab. Therefore, considering that web shell was created on July 21st, it is expected that the attacker used an undisclosed zero-day vulnerability. Last week, Fortinet addressed a critical authentication bypass flaw tracked to CV 2022-40684 that impacted FortiGate firewalls and FortiProxy web servers. An attacker can exploit the vulnerability to log into vulnerable devices. An authentication bypass using an alternate path or channel, CWE88, in FortiOS and FortiProxy may allow an unauthenticated attacker to perform operations on the administrative interface via specially crafted HTTP and HTTPS requests, reads the advisory published by the company. The company urges customers to address this critical vulnerability immediately due to the risk of remote exploitation of the flaw. The vulnerability impacts FortiOS versions from 7.0.0 to 7.0.6 and 7.2.0 to 7.2.1. FortiProxy versions 7.0.0 to 7.0.6 and 7.2.0 are also impacted. The cybersecurity firm addressed the flaw with the release of FortiOS FortiProxy version 7.0.7 and 7.2.2. The company also provided a workaround for those who can't immediately deploy security updates. Customers that are not able to upgrade their systems should disable HTTP/HTTPS administrative interface or limit IP addresses that can reach it. We've seen this story earlier. In terms of patches, I think it was. Today, the company confirmed the critical authentication bypass vulnerability is being exploited in the wild. Fortinet is aware of an instance where this vulnerability was exploited and recommends immediately validating your systems against the following indicator of compromise in the device's logs. User equals local_process_access, continues the advisory. Operators behind the popular dark web carding market BidenCash have released a dump of 1,221,551 credit cards to promote their underground payment card shop. Multiple security firms noticed the promotional activity, but the news was first reported by threat intelligence firm Cybersecurity and the Italian firm D3 Lab. It's a great gift to fraudsters that can download for free the dump and use it for fraudulent activities. The announcement of the availability of the dataset, consisting of over 1.2 million credit card and debit cards information on a notorious cybercrime forum, mainly hosting Russian and English-speaking threat actors. The leaked data includes 1,221,551 credit and debit card records containing credit card number, expiry date, or expiration date, 3-digit card verification value, CVV, cardholder's name, associated bank name, full address, date of birth, email, and phone number. The database also includes the social security numbers of cardholders in the United States. According to threat intelligence company Cybersecurity, the payment card data belong to cardholders across the globe, including US, Canada, India, Bangladesh, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore. Our detailed statistical analysis revealed that American Express is impacted the most. The top 10 countries with affected customers are the United States, India, Brazil, the United Kingdom, Mexico, Turkey, Spain, Italy, Australia, and China. Underground carding marketplaces are crucial components of the cybercrime ecosystem. They facilitate the sale and purchase of payment card data. One of the most popular carding sites was Joker Stash. Its operators retired in February 2021 and shut down their service and destroyed the backups. Toyota Motor Corporation warns customers that their personal information may have been accidentally exposed after an access key was publicly available on GitHub for almost 5 years. The car maker discovered recently that a portion of its Tconnect site source code was mistakenly published on GitHub. Tconnect is an app developed by the company that allows car owners to control the vehicle's infotainment system and monitor the access of the vehicle. The code also contained an access key to the data server that stored customer info, such as email addresses and management numbers. The source code was leaked by a development subcontractor. An unauthorized third party could have had access to the details of the Toyota customers between December 2017 and September 15, 2022. The number of impacted customers is 296,019. The GitHub repository was restricted in September 2022, and the keys were changed. Exposed records include customer names, credit card data, and phone numbers have not been compromised as they weren't stored in the exposed database. As a result of an investigation by security experts, although we cannot confirm access to by a third party based on the access history of the data server where the customer's email address and customer management number are stored, at the same time, we cannot completely deny it. We now have, reads the notice published by the company. The company announced that it will individually send an apology and notification to the impacted customers. Toyota also set up a special form on its website to allow customers to check whether their data was exposed. At this time, we have not confirmed any unauthorized use of personal information related to this matter, but it is possible that spam emails such as spoofing or phishing scams using email addresses may be sent. If you receive a suspicious email with an unknown sender or subject, there is a risk of virus infection or unauthorized access, so please do not open the file attached to the email and delete the email itself immediately, continues the notice. A recent discovery by the Cyber News research team is a stellar example of how open databases pose a great risk to businesses and consumers alike. On September 16th, researchers discovered an unprotected MongoDB instance owned by infomag.com.tr, an independently owned and operated licensee of Harvard Business Publishing, a wholly owned subsidiary of Harvard University. According to its website, Infomag publishes Bloomberg Businessweek and Harvard Business Review in Turkish. Hosted in Turkey, the database was 3.9 gigabytes strong, or large, and had over 19.5 million records, although there were some duplicates and some data wasn't sensitive. In total, the database leaked over 152,000 pieces of information pertaining to customers, such as emails, names, links to LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook profiles, and hashed passwords. Some were protected by a fragile encryption algorithm like MD5, but others were encrypted using bcrypt, considered a strong hash. The instance also contained 15 employee emails, names, and passwords protected by a weak SHA-1 128-bit hash. Some credential pairs belong to Harvard Business Review English users. The oldest entry goes as far back as 2017, and it is unclear how long this instance had been open prior to the Cyber News discovery. The dataset also contained payment logs with emails, dates, bank names, phone numbers, and Internet Protocol addresses. Infomag also stored physical addresses of some companies and private individuals, as well as company tax numbers. Given a considerable portion of the stored passwords were hashed using weak password hashing functions, MD5 and SHA-1, they should easily be decrypted and used for credential stuffing attacks. SHA-1, or Secure Hashing Algorithm 1, has been broken since 2004 and can be breached quickly by criminals at relatively little cost. MD5 is an even weaker algorithm, reportedly first compromised back in 1996. Wow, I didn't know it was that far back. Moreover, the database contained physical addresses paired with names, email addresses, and phone numbers. This information could be used for identity theft or harassment. The open instance also contains some information that could harm the company itself. For example, the admin indice revealed that some employees had permission to edit the Harvard Business Review Turkey website. Employee emails and credentials could be used to modify the website without confirmation or to access additional resources connected to the internet. On September 19th, Cyber News researchers went back to check whether the database was still open and learned that it had been hit by a ransomware attack, meaning that criminals found the dataset before its owner had a chance to close it. Crooks left a note asking for a ransom in Bitcoin and threatening to contact authorities that might fine the company for potential GDPR violations. You must pay 0.01 Bitcoin to wallet address 48 hours to recover it. After 48 hours expiration, we will leaked and exposed all your data. In case of refusal to pay, we will contact the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, and notify them that you store user data in an open form and is not safe. Under the rules of the law, you face a heavy fine or arrest, and your base dump will be dropped from our server, the note reads. It further gives the victim instructions on where and how to pay Bitcoin. Upon further investigation, the Cyber News team found that the wallet address mentioned in the note had 9 transactions, with 5 seemingly being from victims transferring 0.01 Bitcoin, previously the ransom amount demanded by the crooks. Data breach monitoring platform DataSense has indexed over 25 billion leaked credentials. Its founders Josh Amishav-Zlatin says that when data leaks make the headlines, it's almost either a misconfigured Elasticsearch, MongoDB, or S3 instance. The second common error is associated with application vulnerabilities existing in customers' environment that can expose the backend dataset and allow hackers access. Tom Leclario, VP of Professional Services at cybersecurity company SilverSky, told Cyber News. In March 2022, the Everest ransomware operators published a notice announcing the sale of South Africa electricity company's root access for $125,000. ESKOM transforms inputs from the natural environment, coal, nuclear, fuel, diesel, water, and wind, into more than 90% of the energy supplied to a wide range of customers in South Africa and Southern African Development Community region. ESKOM is one of the few remaining vertically integrated utilities connected to Southern African power pool through an interconnected grid which serves to support grid stability. Last week, security experts reported that ESKOM HLD or Holdings SOC Limited was having some server issues. At the same time, the Everest ransom gang posted a claim about the hack of the South African state-owned electricity company. The threat actors claim to have had access to all servers of the company and to have root access to many of them. Administration servers, databases, backups, employee access to the administration of POS terminals, and much more, multiple settings and developments. You can become the king of electricity, the whole country. Trust access of a well-known defense company from USA, which is a partner of this electric company, reads the message published on the Tor leak site of the gang. The ransomware gang is offering a package including servers with administrator, root sysadmin passwords for Linux and Windows servers, and more. The criminals are demanding $200,000 for the stolen access. They accept both Bitcoin and Monero cryptocurrencies. Hey, that was fast. We're now on to other security news. VMware researchers have analyzed the supply chain behind the Emotet malware, reporting that its operations are continually shifting their tactics, techniques, and procedures to avoid detection. The Emotet banking Trojan has been active at least since 2014. The botnet is operated by a threat actor tracked as TA542. The infamous banking Trojan was also used to deliver other malicious code such as TrickBot and QBot Trojans, or ransomware such as Conti, Prolock, Ryok, and eGregor. In April, the operators of the infamous Emotet botnet started testing new attack techniques in response to Microsoft's move to disable Visual Basic for applications, macOS, and by default. Based on a new similarity metric, the VMware Threat Analysis Unit's clustering analysis identified various stages of Emotet attacks with several initial infection waves that change how the malware is delivered, reads the report published by VMware's Threat Analysis Unit, or TAU. The ongoing adaptation of Emotet's execution chain is one reason the malware has been successful for so long. The attack chain used in recent Emotet campaigns leverages on spam emails to deliver weaponized Microsoft documents. The content of the message is crafted to trick users into enabling malicious macros, which result in a series of PowerShell commands being executed to download the Emotet payload. Threat actors use Emotet to deliver additional modules such as TrickBot and CakeBot. The experts classify the attacks into 3 waves. A. Emotet payload via an XL4 macro directly. B. Emotet payload via an XL4 macro with PowerShell. C. Emotet payload uses a Visual Basic application macro with PowerShell. In late January 2022, a wave of attacks introduced the use of Windows native utility mshta.exe used to execute Microsoft HTML application or HTA files. Experts pointed out that the MSHTA tool, like PowerShell, are living off the land binaries. Living off the land binaries are commonly used by threat actors because they are signed by Microsoft and trusted by Windows. VMware observed the following 8 modules in the attacks they have analyzed. The core module, or Emotet payload, a spamming module, a Thunderbird email client account stealer, an Outlook email client account stealer, a credit card information stealer, a spreader that leverages the SMB Protocol 32, a module with an embedded mail pass view application, a module with an embedded web browser pass view application. In addition to known modules and functionalities seen in the past, this list highlights 2 updated modules that we were able to intercept, continues the report. These were a module that steals credit card information specifically targeting Google Chrome browsers and a spreading module that leverages the SMB protocol. The researchers also tracked the evolution of Emotet's command and control infrastructure by using custom techniques and tools that allow them to extract the configuration files used by the samples. The dataset used by the experts contained 24,276 unique Emotet DLL payloads. 26.7% of them were dropped by Excel documents. VMware experts tracked multiple clusters and related command and control infrastructure over the time. The operators were recently spotted operating 2 new botnet clusters tracked as epochs 4 and 5. The largest botnet cluster, Cluster 0, contains 10,235 samples, which is more than 40% of the whole dataset and spans a time horizon of almost 3 months, March 15th of 2022 and June 18th of 2022, reused command and control servers belonging to Epoch 5. The researchers also analyzed the geographic distribution of the IP addresses of the servers used to host the Emotet modules. Most of the modules were hosted in India, more than 26%, followed by Korea, Thailand, and Ghana. The experts recommend to promote awareness and training programs, implement network segmentation, adapt network detection and response, enforce a zero-trust model, scan network artifacts, and implement robust password policies and best practices. According to cybersecurity experts, this may be used for political propaganda, foreign influence activity, disinformation scams, and fraud. Introduced by Canadian researchers to the public in 2014, generative adversarial networks typically imitate people's faces, speech, and unique facial gestures. They have become known to online communities as deep fakes. One of the recently identified underground services, Real Deepfake, readily available through Telegram groups for a small fee, the service allows actors to create a deepfake instance with their selected character, which they then apply a voiceover from a chosen script. They can also include effects and text. The service leverages technologies such as VoiceR and lip sync to change the voice so it sounds like the chosen character. Examples of these deep fakes include the impersonation of celebrities such as Elon Musk, Snoop Dogg, Donald Trump, and The Rock. The scammers are also using deepfakes to credibly impersonate C-suite executives in video chats or phone calls to issue fraudulent wire transfer instructions to their colleagues and personnel. The accelerating rise of deepfake BEC and phishing frauds targeting the Web3 community comes amidst the backdrop of Federal Trade Commission reports that American consumers have lost over $1 billion in crypto because of scams since the start of 2021. The experts highlight deepfakes will be likely used by bad actors to provide misleading information about cryptocurrency, as well as initial coin offerings using profiles of celebrities. RE Security experts expects to see more hybrid attacks that combine convincing email and social media blasts, fraudulent mints, and expertly rendered deepfakes of high-profile Web3 influencers to deceive both everyday consumers and crypto professionals alike. German Interior Ministry Nancy Faeser wants to dismiss the head of Federal Cybersecurity Authority, Arne Schönbohm, due to possible contact with people involved with Russian security services. The news was reported by German media on Sunday, citing government sources according to an investigation conducted by broadcaster ZDF. Schönbohm was in contact with Russia through an association that he co-founded in 2012, the Cybersecurity Council of Germany. The Interior Ministry is taking the facts that have been reported seriously and investigating them comprehensively. The ministry added it was examining all options on how to deal with the situation. The Cybersecurity Council Germany provides advisories on cybersecurity issued to businesses, government agencies, and policymakers. Schönbohm denied any ongoing contact with the organizations and dismissed the charges as absurd allegations. Schönbohm was a founder of the association, which counts as a member a German company that is a subsidiary of a Russian cybersecurity firm founded by a former KGB employee, they wrote. Neither the Interior Ministry nor the BSI immediately replied to requests for comment. These accusations must be decisively investigated, said Konstantin von Notz, the head of the Parliamentary Oversight Committee for Germany's intelligence agencies. Germany has repeatedly accused Russia-linked threat actors of cyber attacks against its parliament and infrastructure. In 2015, Russia-linked hackers paralyzed the computer network of the lower house of parliament, the Bundestag. The attack forced the entire institution offline for days while it was fixed. And that's the news. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe if you haven't already, and smash the bell if you haven't already, and I'll see you on the next episode. Take care.
Don't forget to